Cormac McCarthy fans, today is either a day of celebration or disgust for you because Cormac McCarthy is going to be, well, he won't be, his estate is going to be releasing novels, novellas, and other works by him posthumously. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be angry about this, but I am here to report the news to a lot of you guys who haven't heard this yet. And so, obviously, a year ago, Cormac McCarthy died. And almost instantly, biographers were rushing to his family, to people at the Santa Fe Institute, his ex-wives, whoever, because they wanted to write a book on him. And currently, right now, there are 3 Cormac McCarthy biographies being written, which is insane to me. But what's great about that is a lot of them are starting to conclude their work because they obviously want to be the first one to release the biography. And it's kind of a weird thing that's going on because one of the biographers, is Tracy Daugherty, and he's actually known as a biographer. He did Larry McMurtry's biography, Joseph Heller's, and a ton of other authors. And so you would think like, oh, wow, that's going to be the definitive one because I've read his McMurtry one and it was pretty good. But there is an official biographer who's never written a biography before, who's written books on survival, named Lawrence Gonzalez, who has access to things that Daugherty and other people don't have because he's working with the family. And then there's a third biographer who I don't know, who is referenced in this article we're going to be talking about. But they are starting to speak now on some of the stuff they found out, and it's pretty insane. There's going to be a ton of stuff that we're going to talk about, like Cormac McCarthy having cancer and still writing through cancer, some stuff about his writing process, a bunch of cool stuff. But today we're focusing on Cormac McCarthy's new works. And so this is from an article by Alexander Sarando, and he writes, and this is according to Lawrence Gonzalez, the official biographer, lots of new stuff coming out, I think. There will be another Cormac McCarthy novel published. Sounds like there's enough for at least a collection of novellas, plus all kinds of letters that undoubtedly somebody will collect. And so, boom, there we have it, everybody. We've all been speculating for years about this because back in 2009, Cormac McCarthy alluded that he had 2 other novels outside of The Passenger and Stella Maris that he was working on. And one of them is going to be published and brought to light. And then there will be a collection of novellas because when I went to the Cormac McCarthy archive, there were so many random things that McCarthy would work on that never really went anywhere, that just got scrapped. And when you look at the screenplays he worked on in the 1970s, and now we know because of this article, Stella Maris was one of them. Stella Maris, No Country for Old Men, All the Pretty Horses, Cities of the Plain, The Gardener's Son, As I Lay Dying. You would have to think maybe there are others. And McCarthy, as we saw with Child of God, dwindled with the idea of writing books for cash grabs because Child of God kind of started as, well, it started as a segment of Outer Dark that he cut from the novel. And it was like 8,000 or 9,000 words, which is, we're starting to move into novella land. And so he just added 25,000 words to that and boom, we have a novel. But the reason he did that is he was trying to get an early advance because him and his wife were that broke. It wasn't because he was inspired by Lester Ballard or the Louis Lake murders, or he was trying to do something for his legacy, because when James Franco asked him decades later, why did you write that? He was like, I don't know. That was a really dumb thing of me to do. And when you look at McCarthy novels, a lot of the time, they really are small novellas. If you look at the start of The Crossing with all the wolf stuff, that could be a novella of its own. But posthumous novels do have kind of a bad reputation. And when I think of David Foster Wallace, who I love, and his novel, The Pale King, it was unfinished. And I think a cash grab so that he could, obviously support his wife after his suicide. When I look at another author I love, Ernest Hemingway, and his novel, Garden of Eden, thank God we have that novel because it really explores Hemingway's kind of odd sexuality, but it's not his best work. But there are other posthumous novels that are absolutely wonderful. And over in the Right Conscious Book Club, we recently just read A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, and I would consider that an American classic and maybe one of the best posthumous novels ever written. And if you guys want to go and join my Cormac McCarthy course and my Cormac McCarthy book club, we are currently about to start reading next week Stella Maris, Child of God, The Road, and The Sunset Limited. And in the Right Conscious Book Club, we are currently reading over 20 books at once. Yes, you heard that correctly. And so all those book clubs are spread at different times on different days of the week. So I guarantee that you will be able to at least make one of the book clubs. You will also get access to office hours where you can hang out and talk to me, and daily podcasts where I talk about a wide variety of topics that I really can't talk about on YouTube, and you can listen to those on your favorite podcasting app. So we have a Confederacy of the Dunces. We have The Trial by Franz Kafka. I'm not going to go down the list, but we even have things like Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, because he was working in, the merchant class and didn't really want to have that published, because of his reputation. And so when I look at posthumous novels that maybe were disasters, I don't think that they were completed. But Cormac McCarthy, if he got to the third or fourth draft, it would pretty much be completed, in my opinion, ready to go, because there was surprising differences in McCarthy's drafts. Because if you go and read one of the earlier drafts of Blood Meridian in the Cormac McCarthy archive, and I have, and people say it's around the third draft, it's absolutely horrible. You could sit down right now and write the Blood Meridian third draft. And people do it all the time. This is why I tell authors, you actually need to spend time revising and working on your stuff, because you're releasing the third draft of Blood Meridian. But somewhere in the fifth and sixth draft, and McCarthy would spend at least 1,000 hours, if not closer to 2,000 hours on each revision of his drafts. Something magical started to happen. And so I assume that McCarthy knew that he was going to die. And as we just were talking about, McCarthy had cancer and knew things were starting to, kind of head toward that direction. And it wouldn't be crazy to assume that he's cooked something up that's past the fifth or sixth draft, and maybe with an editor could be very, very good. Because who knows what the hell it is? Who knows what some of these novellas are? Maybe they're an exploration of the South, or something that we've never seen before from McCarthy, because he wanted to release The Passenger and Stella Maris because he'd been working on them for so long, but they also meant something to him personally because they were about science. And as we'll talk about in later videos, all the scientists and people at the Santa Fe Institute really made a group effort to help get Cormac across the finish line, which actually is making me somewhat emotional, because he helped so many of them. He helped so many of them write and edit their books and give them advice and be an ear and a good friend for so long. And then in his later years when he had cancer, they helped him, finish a novel that he'd been working on for over 60 years. And so The Passenger and Stella Maris are very complicated, do have things related to science and theories within theories. But if the novel that he was working on and the novellas he was working on were more akin to The Road or All the Pretty Horses, I think that it would be much easier to get that out and it be successful than trying to release something like Suttree posthumously. And, I'm excited. This just means that we can go to the bookstore again and buy another Cormac McCarthy novel. I know it's dumb. I know it's posthumous. I know the money's not going to him. It's going to his son. But I was a fan of The Passenger. I actually think it's one of McCarthy's better novels. I was also a fan of Stella Maris. I think people, most of the time, the people I've seen that have hated that have been light McCarthy readers. They've read The Road, No Country for Old Men, Blood Meridian, and that's what they were expecting. But The Passenger, when compared to a lot of his Southern works, is very similar and much more transcendent. And there are people leave comments, what do you mean by transcendent? That implies a hierarchy that nobody understands except you. And us intellectuals out there understand that the word transcendent is always fallacious because the hierarchy you're implying is dominating. Fucking people, bro. Yes, transcendent novel. And so I want to hear from the people who are going to be angry about this, because there always are some. There are people like, why would you ruin his legacy? Why would you put something out? But I always think that, after an author dies, or even in their life, that the more that you publish, the more that you put out there, especially if you become kind of a public figure that people want to study, the better it is. The more scholars and fans can get deeper into literature, and that's going to be a good thing. When Cormac McCarthy's last novel launches, it's going to be a huge deal here on YouTube. When his biographies launch, it's going to be a huge deal. There's a collection of novellas. How fun would that be to see short Cormac McCarthy stories? And then we finally get the movies, the TV shows. Like The Passenger and Stella Maris are apparently going to get a TV show, which I think is going to be spectacular. I think those are prime for an HBO, limited series. Maybe the Blood Meridian movie won't suck. It probably will. But our job, if we want to carry on Cormac McCarthy's legacy, is to talk about it, is obviously to create works and stand upon his shoulders. But that could be a really hard thing to do. Can you write better than Cormac McCarthy currently? Or even 10 years from now at the pace you're going? I don't know about that. But what you can do is talk about his work, talk about others' work, get people into literature, because you only have a couple chances. If you give a friend a bad movie recommendation or a bad book recommendation, they'll never believe you again. And so that even includes your own work. And so I know that Cormac McCarthy's work, especially for people who are a little bit more on the intellectual side, resonates very highly, and they see the magic and the beauty within it. And I don't know any current authors who can do what McCarthy did. And the more people we can get reading Cormac McCarthy, even if it's through a dumb video like Windy Goons or through the Cormac McCarthy subreddit or whatever, then that's great. And even better, the more people we have talking about McCarthy, making TikToks, making blog posts, Instagram posts about McCarthy, the better chance we have of actually creating an educational awakening in the world. So you guys already know, when all 3 biographies come out, I will be here. When anything that McCarthy releases comes out, I will be here, and I expect you will be here too, because Right Conscious is the headquarters of everything related to McCarthy here on YouTube. Peace out, everybody. Have a good Monday, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video.